The aftermath of Typhoon Yolanda and Ondoy show the urgency to build climate-resistant resettlement areas to ensure our people are safe and secure from natural calamities. Now, what should government and Congress do to cope with destructive force of nature's fury when it strikes? And joining us tonight is Congressman Albee Benitez, Chairman of the House Committee on Housing and Urban Development. Good evening, sir, and welcome to NewsLife.
Good evening, Robert. Good evening to all the listeners of NewsLife.
So to start us off, now, what lessons should we learn from the aftermath of so many typhoons which hit the country in relocating our people to safer grounds?
Well, first and foremost, I think if there is a government warning, our citizens should really heed their call. Because most of the time, I think, when we tell them to evacuate, some of them don't really take it seriously. And because of that, they're in the typhoon path and can really cause major calamities, especially loss of lives.
So with regards to policy making, who should set this and what should come first? Land use policy or amending the building code?
Well, I think both. Land use will really determine whether we should evacuate these people to safer grounds. Once it has been identified that it's a hazardous area, then maybe we should force them to move to another area where they can be at least more safe. The building code will ensure that any structure that we build in any areas in the country should be able to withstand typhoons. The existing building code allows only for a typhoon with about 200 kilometers. Typhoon Yolanda went up to about 300. So I think as of now, we are actually reviewing our building code to withstand stronger typhoons.
So now, year in, year out, we are affected by typhoons and earthquakes. Now, how do we empower our local governments to ensure that they have the capacity to plan their communities, especially where these settlements are built?
Well, first and foremost, I think is planning and education. I think the local government should be equipped with all the information they need, especially those data that's coming from the national government, so that they can pass this on to their constituents, and thus they will be well equipped with the knowledge of what to expect when such a calamity affects them.
So now, what kinds of strategies and policies should be in place now that we know that year in, year out, the climate is pretty different? Some areas which were not actually hit by typhoons before were severely hit this time round. Now, what strategies should be in place?
Well, we're reviewing the building code as we speak right now, and we're trying to determine what areas should not be built with any houses. So I think those strategies should be are the step in the right direction. So once we have formulated and finalized those hazard areas, and maybe the local government as well as the national government should ensure that these are implemented properly.
So how different is the program to relocate informal settlers in a city from a program to relocate families from shorelines which may be affected by storm surges?
Not that much, because the biggest criteria or the biggest reason why people don't really move from informal settlers from the city and from settlers in the shoreline is because of their proximity to livelihood. The shoreline fishermen, or those residents who stay in the shoreline, are usually fishermen, and then they'd rather closer to their source of livelihoods, which is why it's not much different from informal settlers in the city.
So as chairman of the House Committee on Urban Housing and Development, what kinds of programs are in place right now? What strategies are you looking into for us to move forward?
We're looking for, repeat that again, it's really more of
the policies that that need to be done for us to move forward and ensure that our people are safe in these areas. Like, for instance, we have hazard mapping. Is that in place right now?
It's under process right now. So we're waiting for a final mapping of the government, and probably once it is finalized, we'll present that to the local government so that they can disseminate this information to the concerned people.
So if we can shift to a different topic now, how can we prevent scams affecting Pag-ibig members? One that is like a scam allegedly orchestrated by Delphine Lee.
Well, if you look at the policy of Pag-ibig before, they made the developers as a guarantor of the Pag-ibig loans. So what happened was Pag-ibig was not too concerned about who would be borrowing for the housing units that's being built by the developers, because the developers themselves would guarantee the housing loan. So this enabled the developers to be really to have their own activities in getting whoever would like to buy their housing. So it was not strictly monitored by government, which caused this scam with Delphine Lee. This has actually been renewed. Pag-ibig has changed its policy and made sure that it is not just the developers that will guarantee, but Pag-ibig itself will be the one who will assess each and every individual buyers to make sure that there is no ghost, there is no duplication housing loans.
And a final word from you, sir?
Well, it's nice to be here. Thank you.
What are the next steps, sir, in terms of policy making in this?
For housing?
Yes.
Well, we've looking at it from the committee in trying to come up with a master plan for the housing sectors to make sure that we don't just have a band-aid solution to our housing problem, but we come up with viable solutions to make sure that the problems are met head-on and not just a band-aid solution, as I've earlier stated.
Okay, on that note, thank you very much for joining us here tonight on News Live. That was Congressman Albee Benitez, Chairman of the House Committee on Housing and Urban Development. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.